Chapter 1, 143, 7th Year, Breakdown. Friday, March 24th, 1978, 0300 a.m. Remus rolled over again. He couldn't sleep. He was too hot with the duvet on, too cold if he pushed it off. His legs kept getting all tangled up in the bedsheets. His pillow had lumps in it, and somewhere in Gryffindor Tower a tap was dripping, which was driving him insane. On top of this, he just didn't feel tired. He sighed heavily and rolled over again. Beside him, Sirius groaned.
Moony, you are my best friend, and I would probably dive in front of a curse for you. But if you wake me up one more time, then I cannot be held responsible for my actions.
He said this all without opening his eyes.
Sorry.
Remus whispered.
I think it's the moon. I can't sleep. Sorry.
He got out of bed. It was no use keeping both of them up. Outside of the bed curtains, in the early morning gloom of their bedroom, Remus stood at the window for a while. It was a clear night, and the moon was almost full. Just one slither missing. He wondered if he had ever seen a full moon with his own human eyes. Perhaps he'd been too young to remember. The forest beneath the moon was black with shadow, and it seemed unbelievable to Remus that in only a few hours he and his friends would be running through those dark, mysterious trees as if it was their own personal playground. Just now, it looked terrifying, a great black pit that could swallow you whole. Only 4 more moons at Hogwarts. And then what? He put that thought away for another time. Remus looked at his own empty bed, unenthusiastically. The curtains hadn't been drawn over for weeks because he never slept there, only used it for homework. As a consequence, it was covered with books, broken quills, chocolate wrappers, scrunched up balls of paper. Even if it had been tidy, the sheets looked somehow cold and uninviting in the moonlight. He'd have sighed again, but he didn't want to make any more noise. There were some biscuits in the common room, a tin of Garibaldi's from Mrs. Potter. If he took his book and his fags, he could have quite a pleasant few hours before he finally fell asleep, or it was time for breakfast. His stomach growled, and that was the decision made. He pulled on a pair of thick socks. They were Peter's, actually, but he never minded lending stuff like that too much. Picked up his wand and his book and crept down to the common room, careful to step over the squeaky stair as he did. As Remus pushed open the door to the common room, he realised too late that he was not alone. The fireplace was roaring and the lamps around the couches glowing warmly. A figure was curled up on the largest red velvet settee, wrapped in a thick maroon blanket with just a long black plait poking out of the top. In the armchair, clutching a mug of warm Ovaltine, staring fixedly at the fire, was Marlene. She looked up as he entered, and Remus had no choice but to smile affably and approach her. As he neared, he could see that her eyes were dark and heavy, her cheeks red and tear-stained.
Hi,
he said, low so as not to wake Yaz. She gave a small, faraway smile, unfurling slightly, wiping her cheeks.
Hi.
You okay?
He stood just close enough. He didn't want to know the answer. He regretted everything, and wished with every fibre of his being that he was back in bed with Sirius, getting kicked in the shin every time he rolled over. Marlene shook her head mournfully, staring at the fire, her eyes filling up with tears. It was a familiar sight these days, and not just Marlene. Bad news was so common. Family members in hospital, or dead, or, worse than either, missing.
I said he could get in touch through the fireplace if he wanted to talk tonight.
She whispered, her voice hoarse as an old woman's.
Danny, it's the full moon tomorrow. Well, tonight, I suppose.
She glanced at the grandfather clock.
Oh, is it?
Remus assumed as casual an air as possible. Marlene nodded, still looking at the fire.
It has to be tonight, you see. He's going to the ministry tomorrow and they'll lock him up in the cells there. I wanted to go home for it, but he says there's nothing I can do.
I suppose there isn't.
Remus's stomach was clenching so hard he wanted to double over. He was so nervous and jittery already.
He'll be okay.
He tried, hoping he sounded kind.
He'll survive it,
she said bitterly.
But I don't think he'll be okay. It takes a bit of you away every time. I've seen them at St. Mungo's, and he told me how it feels.
Why?
I asked.
She shrugged.
Madame Pomfrey says I have a curious mind. That's why I'll be a good healer. I wanted to know so I could help, but he was so down after last month, so weak.
I'm sure just being there for him helps.
Remus tried. Marlene wiped her eyes again with her sleeves.
just doesn't seem like enough.
She sighed heavily, and her focus seemed to return a bit. She looked at him properly for the first one.
Sorry, love. Is everything okay with you? What are you doing up?
Oh, just couldn't sleep.
He raised his book to demonstrate.
Me neither. I knew Danny probably wouldn't try to get through, but I couldn't go to bed just in case. Poor Yaz tried her best.
She gave the girl sleeping on the couch an affectionate look.
She's too good for me by half.
Personally, I don't think anyone's good enough for you.
Remus said, though it wasn't him speaking, not really. They were Sirius's words. He'd noticed himself sounding more and more like Sirius and found he didn't mind it. Anyway, it made Marlene smile again.
Lovely boy,
She said softly.
Sit down, eh? You're making me nervous hovering like that.
He sat awkwardly on the sofa opposite Yaz. Marlene sat up, stretching as though her back hurt. As she unfolded her legs from underneath her, a quill fell onto the floor.
Oops.
She leaned over to pick it up.
I was going to try and write him a letter, but I don't know what to say.
She pulled the blank parchment out from the side of the armchair cushion. Remus sat stiffly with his book on his lap.
Is it really a cell they put him in? At the ministry?
He asked, unable to contain his grim curiosity. She stood up to stretch more and nodded.
Yeah, Mum said. He wouldn't tell me about it, which means it must be bad. Mum said it's better I don't know too much.
Remus kept with mouth shut, not trusting himself. Marlene tilted her head sympathetically.
I'm so sorry, Remus. I didn't even think. I feel awful whinging to you about this, given your situation.
What?
He stared up at her, his heart skipping a beat.
With your mum being in the hospital?
Marlene replied, yawning, setting down the quill and parchment on the coffee table between them.
No wonder you can't sleep either.
Oh, yeah.
He willed himself to calm down.
Yeah. It's okay, though. I understand.
Can I sit with you for a bit? You can read your book. I won't bother you.
She asked, biting her lip.
I just don't want to be the only one awake.
Yeah, of course.
To his surprise, she didn't sit back down, but came over to join him on the couch. She settled in, making herself comfortable, pulling a blanket up to her chin. He pretended to do the same, opening his book and leaning casually against the arm of the chair.
Revision,
She asked, resting her cheek on his shoulder.
What else?
He replied.
Advanced arithmancy.
Oh, Remus.
She yawned again, her voice thick.
How fascinating.
She relaxed a bit and rested a hand on his knee. He gave it a quick squeeze for comfort.
You know me.
He said softly, joining in her sarcasm.
I live dangerously.
She gave a quiet chuckle, her eyes closing. He read and felt her heartbeat steady, her breathing even out, and in only a few minutes she was fast asleep, a dead weight curled up against him. He didn't mind. It was quite nice. Remus stopped reading after Marlene had fallen asleep. He gently closed his book and just sat pondering for a while. He could smell the salt of her tears drying on her skin and the anxiety in her blood. And he couldn't get Danny out of his mind, in an imagined Ministry of Magic cell, probably underground, probably bare and dark and cold. The pain would be a real shock if you'd never experienced it before, Remus thought. He could well imagine that the second full moon would feel even worse, because you'd know what was coming. No wonder Danny didn't want to talk about it. If what Marlene said was true, then her brother had no one else to ask about it. No one to tell him that if you tried to fight the transformation, if you tried to brace yourself against it, then it only hurt more. That Murtlap essence was best for the initial cuts, but if you used Muggle disinfectant too, then the skin knit back together neater. Then there were the things that Remus wasn't sure if anyone knew, about the scent of magic, or how you could draw from it, how it made you stronger as long as you could channel it right, how being a werewolf meant lots of things, and not all of them were awful. No closer to sleep, Remus reached for the blank bit of parchment and began to write. Friday, March 24th, 1978, 5:30 p.m.
You don't have to walk me.
Remus snapped irritably.
I know where the hospital wing is.
I know.
Sirius replied, cheerfully, getting up anyway. James, Peter and Lily all looked down at their food.
You haven't finished your dinner.
Remus frowned.
Nor have you.
That's because I don't want to puke all over myself when the crippling agony hits.
Remus muttered darkly. Sirius glanced down at their friends, staring stalwartly at their empty plates.
Come on, Mooney, let's go,
he said, a bit more gently. Remus shoved his hands deep in his robe pockets and strode quickly out of the great hall, forcing Sirius to jog slightly to keep up.
Hey!
The dark-haired boy hurried after him. Remus didn't slow down until they were halfway to the hospital wing.
Okay, I get it. You're in one of your dark moods.
Sirius puffed.
I'm always in a dark mood.
Remus tutted.
You ought to stop smoking. How are we going to beat Slytherin if you're so out of breath you can't keep up with me?
You can talk.
Sirius straightened up.
This is the first time I've seen you without a fag in your mouth for weeks. Anyway, what's wrong?
Really? You have to ask.
Remus sped up again.
Okay.
Sirius grabbed his arm to slow him down.
You're not sleeping, and you couldn't have dinner even though pudding was millionaire shortbread, which is your favorite. Fair enough. I'd be grumpy too.
I'm not grumpy.
Remus objected.
Touchy then.
Fuck off.
Remus practically growled.
Leave me alone if you're going to be an arse.
I'm just trying to keep things in perspective.
You don't understand.
Make me understand.
They were nearish the hospital wing now, and everyone was at dinner, so the corridor was empty, which was lucky because Remus didn't check before he completely lost his rag.
Make you understand?
He raved.
Fucking hell. Okay, go on then. Understand that I'm climbing the bloody walls with worrying and stressing and... It's NEWTs and the bloody moon and my fucking mother crying because I can't see her tomorrow because my fucking dad couldn't control his fucking temper and now I'm... And Marlene crying over her brother, which wasn't even my fucking fault. But it bloody well feels like it. And school's nearly finished. And there's a war on. And a Quidditch match. And this big prank. And my hip hurts. And I'm just tired. And I really, really wanted pudding.
He felt foolish once it was over, but a bit better too. Like there had been a balloon inflating in his chest all this time, and it had finally popped, giving him space to breathe again. He stood there, glaring at Sirius, waiting for a reaction.
My goodness,
the portrait across from them said. She was a very stern-looking witch, seated in a high-backed wooden chair.
I've never heard such disgusting language.
Oh, piss off, you daft old trollop.
Sirius shot at her, in a very good imitation of Remus. He looked at Remus again and his face cracked into a smile.
You want to sit down for a bit? I think that's the most you've ever said in one go.
Remus exhaled and smiled weakly back.
Sorry.
For what? Come on, Madame Pomfrey will be having kittens.
They carried on their way and the air was cleared, and nothing seemed quite so grim. Still, Remus hated Sirius having to go, knowing that the next time they'd see each other, neither of them would be quite themselves.
So, the way I see it,
Sirius said, still cheerful, after all that.
If I run back to the hall as fast as I can get the last of the millionaire shortbread and wrap it up for you to have for breakfast. Anything else I can do to help?
You're such a wanker sometimes.
Yep.
Actually, there is something.
Anything.
Could you post this for me?
Remus handed him a sealed envelope. Sirius took it, looking down with a frown.
Are you sure?
No, but it's the right thing to do.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
Anything for our moon?
Remus shut him up with a kiss. Saturday, March 25th, 1978. The transformation hadn't been as bad as he'd expected. Maybe because nothing can ever be that bad when you truly expect the worst. And the night itself was wonderful. He had run and run and run until Prongs and Wormtail were lost, miles behind them, and it was just the wolf and the dog snapping at each other playfully, goading each other on. In the morning, once Remus had writhed and twisted back into his human body, he felt as though his bones were made of cooked spaghetti. He was so exhausted. He stumbled back to the hospital wing with Madame Pomfrey, half asleep, and was grateful to collapse into his favourite bed by the far window and sleep the whole morning away. It was blissful to not be worrying, not fidgeting or clenching his jaw or looking for a distraction. It was late afternoon before Marlene finally heard about the letter. The noise of her arguing with Madame Pomfrey woke Remus. He jolted awake, heart beating faster at the sound of raised voices. The first thing he saw was Sirius, fast asleep in the chair next to him, arms folded across his chest, head lolling, feet propped up on the edge of the hospital bed frame. There was a plate of at least 20 millionaire shortcakes on the bedside table. Sirius's eyes snapped open a few seconds after Remus, and he blinked, surprised, and frowned.
Is that McKinnon?
Let me see him, Poppy.
Miss McKinnon, I absolutely will not have this.
I know he's here.
I shall call Professor McGonagall.
Remus! Remus Lupin!
I'm here, Marlene.
Remus began to get out of bed, ready to face the music. If it was all over, he'd still made it 7 years. He was still legally allowed to perform magic, even if he did get exposed.
It's okay, Madame Pomfrey.
He called, as Marlene came clattering across the ward, yanking back the screen which hid him.
Is it true?
Her hair flew about her face as she stormed in, her eyes wide and wild. She stared at him, and Remus knew she was really seeing him for the first time, analysing, a natural healer. Marlene looked at the bed and Sirius, and Remus's scars and battered frame, and he knew she was remembering every time he had been tired, or missed a lesson, or had a new scratch. The light of truth flashed her eyes, and she burst into tears.
You fucking bastard!